Yeah, Jordan Linnen, BC boy, raised here in Vancouver. I played high school football at Frankfurt Secondary, came up from there, played at Acadia University, left there, came back home to play for the Big Kahuna Rams, which then turned into the Langley Rams. Then went on to play with the BC Lions and then also with the Montreal Alouettes.
That's dope, man. That's so cool. Like that's what I mean. Guys coming from the middle of BC, right? So I mean,
For sure.
that's what's up for sure. Basically the early questions I wanted to ask you is like when you first started playing football, like back in your high school days and whatnot, what did your first thoughts? I mean, obviously it's not what goes through your head when you're playing high school football, like the culture, but like what did you think of football in BC and like how it's progressed from then to where it is now?
I mean, honestly, man, for me, it was just an opportunity to play, obviously, with my friends early on. It was a good opportunity to get around my boys, just being Rugrats, kind of running around playing the game. But, I instantly kind of fell in love with it. I think the biggest thing that drew me to the game was, aside from the physicality, I think was just the camaraderie, man, the group of guys I grew up with from the same area, all different walks of lives, all kind of having a common goal. Really just being team-oriented dudes, but also at the same time bringing something to the table. Some guys had an edge. Some guys, were extremely smart. Some guys just love playing football. Some guys just love playing sports. So I think at the end of the day, I was around a pretty good group of guys that really helped, nurture that love for what football became to me. I think early on it was just about being able to go out there with your boys and every Sunday getting a chance to play ball. When I was playing, minor football or community football, and then obviously when we got to high school, I wasn't in the catchment for my high school, so we all came from different areas to play at the same school at Frankfurt. And we turned that program into a program that was kind of irrelevant to a program that was provincially ranked every single year. That we were there. We had multiple playoff runs. We're the number one ranked team in the province at the AA level. We won playoff games at the AAA JV level. So it was just like an opportunity to really show that, if you come in common, with the common goal and like-minded people, you can accomplish whatever you guys put your mind to.
And like that's what I was going to touch on too is like did you find that when you were coming up to the system that the people around you were really pushing you? Like did you feel like you had to do mostly on your own, or did you feel like you had a good support system with the people involved as well?
Man, I think I was fortunate in a lot of ways growing up. My mom had, friends that played in the CFL and in the NFL. My dad played football. So I was around people that, understood what it took to get to the highest levels. But I think for me, as a kid, even early on, I was highly motivated. I always loved putting in work. I always loved grinding at the gym, grinding with my friends, doing the extra stuff at practice. Like that was just always my MO. Not even just in football, but just in sports in general. I was always a guy that prided myself on doing the extra little things. So when it came down to it, I think the reality for me was, if I could stay motivated and stay on track as far as my goals and accomplishing my goals, then I could set, a real high standard and bar for other people that were, aspiring to do the same. And I think early on, I had a great support system. My family's huge in terms of support. My mom, was a rabid football fan, and she loved the game just probably as much as I did. And then also, being the example to my little brother, and then also having friends that, I grew up with. As I kind of got further in my football career early on, I think I really set the tone for guys that were around me to like really push themselves to be the best version of themselves. And they did the same for me. I think I learned a lot from some of the guys I played with growing up, and then obviously having great mentors. Man, I had a lot of guys that played pro level ball that were really instrumental in just kind of giving me the tools in the free game to be successful on and off the field.
Right, exactly, man, exactly. And then, so like you said, your first transition was to Acadia, so that was straight out of high school. And like, what was the whole recruiting process like coming from BC high school to moving literally across the country?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate, man. Honestly, like with my recruiting process, kind of uncharted territory for me. Obviously, I was going through it and growing through it as it was going on. My senior year was huge in terms of my recruitment. I was getting, opportunities to get recruited by a lot of schools across the country. But I had originally been talking to another school and committed to another school. And, I ended up building up a relationship with Coach Cummings, who's the head coach at Acadia. I just felt like, naturally that was the best fit for me. I felt like the relationship I had with Coach Cummings and the staff out there was kind of one that I didn't have with any other staff. And, as an 18-year-old kid, I was just like eager to get out of the house and experience something different. But I also wanted to play football at a high level. And, I didn't know much about Acadia. I didn't know where it was located. I didn't know any of that stuff. Like I literally had to go to an information session here in Vancouver that was like kind of more geared towards like college recruitment, like more so in the academic sense, not even really football related. And, you know, I met coaches that I knew from, you know, over the phone, but I never met these coaches in person. And, you know, for me, it was kind of cool. There was a local guy named Stephen Farrell who, you know, rest in peace to Steve, but, you know, he was a guy that played at Acadia from BC originally, from the Coquitlam area. And he came to that info one night and sat me down and was like, listen, let me answer any questions you have football related. And instantly I kind of felt like, you know, that was a place that I could go and have success. You know, even after I left Acadia, it wasn't anything, you know, football related, and it wasn't really anything school related. It was more so, you know, opportunity to move back home and help my family. They were going through some things, and, you know, I loved my time there. I still got a lot of love for all those guys at Acadia that I played with, and I still talk to Coach Cummins here and there. So it was a great experience for me, honestly. I think, you know, even though I was only there for a year, it was an opportunity to really go across the country and experience something completely different, but still get a chance to play football, still get to be a student athlete, and really honestly just trying to prove myself all over again.
Perfect. And then you mentioned too that you came back, and then you came back to Langley, which is at the time it was pretty well them and the Raiders. And I guess you could touch on the Sun too, but it's the pinnacle of junior football in BC. So you got that opportunity, and from what I know, you guys did really well. I mean, you personally got a bunch of accolades. What was that like, kind of coming home and being able to ball out at that level?
Yeah, man, it was crazy. Honestly, like I never in a million years thought I would be playing junior football. And it's not a knock on what I thought junior football was or anything like that. It was just kind of, for me, I was, like I said before, extremely motivated to get to university and be able to play college football and really aspire to try and get to a 4-year program and have success and hopefully go pro. But when I came back, you know, it was kind of a weird situation. I was trying to find, you know, what was the best fit for me. I actually went to spring ball or spring camp with both Langley, which was Big Coon at the time, and then the weekend after I ended up going to VI as well. Not a lot of people know that, but I went over there and just wanted to check it out and see what it was about. And, you know, I ended up having a great time at both camps. I you know, was able to ball out for both of those camps for those 3 days that I was in both places. And, you know, when I sat down and looked at it and weighed the pros and cons, I think playing at home, coming home, it made sense to play at home, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I had a chance to go to VI, but I would be in Nanaimo. I wouldn't be close to home, and kind of defeated the whole purpose of coming home, right? So, you know, a lot of love for the guys that were in VI as far as the off the field. You know, obviously on the field we had our battles and there was a lot of animosity and things like that. But, you know, kind of like you said, it was the pinnacle of what junior football was at that time. You know, great players in that league all throughout. You know, especially at both our roster and you know, obviously VI's roster. You got guys like Andrew Harris and you know, Whitman Tmusiak and, you know, Jordan Yance. There's the list goes on. There's tons of great players on both squads. You know, Steph Charles on our team, Errol Brooks on our team, Nick Downey. You know, the list goes on. But again, I think the competition level in junior at that time was at an all-time high, and I think the competition level across the league was at an all-time high. But I think it was a good chance for me to come back home and really fall back in love with football in its most pure sense, and then also be able to be close to my family, which at that time was much needed. So, you know, I really enjoyed my experience in junior, and honestly, like, you know, all the accolades aside, I was a part of some great teams. I was a part of some, you know, I played under some great coaches, and I really think that it helped me really force myself to develop and grow outside of my comfort zone. And I think that's what set me up for the opportunities to get to the next level.
Right. And then just having that ability to just go out and do your thing kind of set you up for getting the accolades that I mentioned before. And then did that kind of transition into the Lions, or was it through the E-Camp, or like how did that go?
So yeah, for me, you know, going into my second to last year playing junior, you know, I kept hearing murmurs that there was a potential for them to bring me in. That's what's called a territorial exemption. So basically you're on the roster, you're on PR, you do everything that they do as a team, as a player. The exception being you don't play in a game. If they activate you, then obviously you have an opportunity to play. But I wasn't activated in my 2 years other than the preseason games. And, you know, for me, it was an opportunity that, you know, I was hoping for and wishing for, but I didn't really think much of it. I was more worried about trying to, you know, excel on the field for my Rams teams. And fortunately enough, they saw me and they kind of were talking to me. You know, Neil McAvoy was huge in talking to me and making sure that I was, you know, available and ready to go if that opportunity presented itself. And then, you know, obviously my relationship with Giroy helped, and, you know, my relationship with several players on the team at those times helped as well. So when I got to that level, it was more so a combination of the evaluation that they had done on their end, me having a great season at the junior level, and then also to, you know, when the time came in the off season to do the E-Camps, me going out there and being able to compete in those opportunities as well. All of those things combined, I think, are what got me the opportunity to get there. And when it happened, man, I was extremely grateful and extremely optimistic that, you know, there was a potential for me to become a pro at some point.
And then when you were there, like you said, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you were training with the Lions and the Rams, right, hand in hand?
Yeah, so in season, man, it was kind of tough at points, but the way it is, obviously the junior season and the CFL season kind of run parallel to each other. So we start camp a little earlier, like training camp, and then going into the season we're a little bit later in terms of kind of where our season is in relativity to the Lions season. So basically, go to camp, we do our thing, and then once the season starts up, after we get out of training camp with the Lions, we might go back to our junior teams for a few weeks, and then we get brought back in a practice capacity. So at points, it was like, I was practicing with the Lions during the week, and then, I'd have the Friday off or whatever, or, I'm done when they're on the road to travel, and then I'm back with my junior team practicing at night, and then, we play Saturday, the occasional Sunday. So at that point, it was kind of intense in terms of just the schedule. But at the end of the day, man, if you love the game, it's a crazy opportunity that you're not going to let, kind of slip.
Yeah, and so like when you were at that point, obviously your life was football. Like there was no ins and outs about it. Like you're pretty much 7 days a week, like you mentioned it. So did you find that the discrepancy between the two teams played a factor, or do you think it was kind of just competitive no matter where you went, and like the facilities? Because obviously when you're doing the early camps for the Lions, they would have had you out in Kamloops if that was still how it was back then.
Yeah. So when we went to
Yeah.
training camp, it was definitely still in Kamloops at Trinity, or not Trinity, Thompson River. Sorry. We did all of our stuff up there for the 3 weeks that training camp went on. But when we got back to Surrey and the season started up, everything was out of the practice facility in Wally there. So it wasn't too bad as far as like being able to get to and from practices. And my Rams coaches were pretty understanding of as far as, flexibility and making sure that I wasn't, overdoing myself. But as far as like the competitive nature of practice and stuff, man, I was fortunate to learn under some legit Hall of Famers or soon to be Hall of Famers at my position. So it was really just me being there trying to be a sponge and soak up as much of the information in the game that was being passed on to me. I built a great relationship with a lot of those guys, and I'm still friends to this day with those guys. I lean on all those guys for, information, resources, just really chopping it up and bouncing ideas off of guys. Some of those guys have morphed into some of my best friends outside of football.
And then a question that I have too is, it's like the more that you ascend in the levels of football too, obviously the more people you meet. Like you could play 1 year of junior and you meet enough people to go on for your whole life. Exactly. And if you're going to go up and play the Lions and etc., you're just meeting more and more people, like you said. So
Right.
when the transition started happening, where your playing days were in question, or wherever the path came there, did you find that the experience that you had kind of laid the playing field for you to continue?
I think for me, like, I think the biggest thing I learned early on in my life, and honestly, it was a kind of, again, a combination of my parents and how I was raised, but also just people I've been around throughout the years of, always network, man, always get to know people, always build relationships, because you never know when those relationships down the road could come back to either help you, maybe even potentially hurt you. But at the end of the day, always treat people with respect, always, build relationships, always talk to people about, what interests them, what drives them, what motivates them. And honestly, you can pick up on things that could help you in your own personal life, both, on and off the field. And I think that was something I did early on in my career, and it kind of laid the groundwork or the foundation for me to have, opportunities that I would have never in a million years imagined outside of playing. You know what I'm saying? I was always so focused on playing. And obviously, every player, every, athlete aspires to have a 10, 15-year career, but
Right.
if you get to do that. And, I was fortunate to play for as long as I did. And at the end of the day, like, there were opportunities to continue to keep playing, but at the same time too, I was in a position in my life where I wanted to kind of figure out what other things were out there and try other things that maybe I didn't get the opportunity to do while I was a player. And I'm fortunate I've had a great, you know, support system. I've had a lot of people that I've networked with over the years that have really just put me in a position to understand that, hey, there's things you can do out there that you can be successful at that maybe aren't even related to football. But, for me, at the end of the day, football is a passion of mine, and I love the game, and I love what this game gave me. So I want to make sure that I continue to inspire and push people to learn about the game, to experience the game, to be around the game, because this game has been a great, life teacher for me. It's afforded me a lot of opportunity, and really, honestly, man, it's been something that I've taken a lot of joy in, because, there's a lot of things in life you could be doing, but if you can play a game or coach a game, man, that's a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And then how quick was the transition to Game Ready? Like, was that something that you had been kind of thinking of? Because I remember when we talked in Vegas, you had mentioned that it had these started as a training thing, right? Originally just doing in between season training, and then just explain how it kind of came to be.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, Game Ready was kind of pivotal in me kind of taking my game to another level, but also just really like the mentorship and the leadership I was around. Game Ready was started by a guy named Will Loftus, who played 10 years in the CFL, played with the Montreal Alouettes, played with the Edmonton Eskimos, won a couple Grey Cups. But, I literally, Will tell you the story anytime you get a chance to talk to him. But, I came up to him one day in the gym and was just like, hey, man, I know you guys are training here. He had a bunch of guys that were pros. He was still, playing at that point. I was just like, hey, man, I'd love to train with you guys. Is there any way I can come and join the group? I know, I'm only 18 or 19-year-old kid, but I'd love to, train with you guys and really push myself. And, Will was kind of looking at me like, is this kid serious? Didn't know me from a hole in the wall. But, he was like, you know what, listen, if you show up every single day at this time and you put the work in, man, you can train with us. You miss a session, like, don't bother coming back. And, I really appreciated that and him even being willing to do that with me. So I never missed a session. We trained at a place called The Garage out in Newton. It was a kind of dingy old school bodybuilder type gym, metal weights, metal everything, chalk dust everywhere. But it was one of those places that I knew if I go in, clock in, learn through, the guys I'm around, really aspire to push myself and do all the things the right way, I could have some success. So, that's how I got started with Will. And once that kind of happened, Will kind of came up with this idea. He's like, you know what, man, I'm transitioning into life after football. I played my 10 years, I love the game, so I want to be around it. How can I give back? And his mentality, if Will, is about helping service the community and give back to anyone that he comes in contact with. He'll give you a shirt off his back. That's the type of person he is. And, that's kind of what spawned the idea of, hey, man, let's start a training group. Let's work with athletes. Let's work with kids that, are high risk. Let's work with kids that maybe don't have everything that everyone else has. So, that was how Game Ready was kind of born. And from that point on, we became a little, small crew that kind of really just pushed each other. There was myself, Jazz Dillon, Adam Braidwood, Navraj Basi, Jamal Knowles, like a bunch of guys that were kind of in their playing careers or aspiring in their playing careers to get to the next level or were playing at the higher levels and really wanted to just keep pushing themselves. So the group became super competitive. The bond was kind of, one of those ones that still to this day is super strong. We're all boys, we're all brothers. But yeah, it kind of translated into, hey, let's turn this into a program that can help other kids, help other players, not just football players, but multi-sport players, and really just turned it into a bigger idea, and it kind of grew from there. And, fast forward a couple years later, we were able to get our own facilities, and then, we have a facility in Cloverdale and a facility in North Van, and those facilities opening up were a game changer. It was a position for us now that we could go in and have our own place to call home, to train athletes our own way, could come in and train together our own way. And, so I trained there every offseason while I was in college. My last 2 years playing junior, I was still training there. Even when I got to the pro level, I was still training there. And then, once football started to wind down for me, it was a transition into, coaching and doing camps. And then I became a full-time strength coach there. And then, I was surrounded by other, former pro athletes, guys like Aaron Mayette, who played 12 years in the Major League Baseball, Jen Lundquist, who played, national team volleyball, D1 volleyball. So I was surrounded by a lot of like-minded people that were really, keen on coming back to their hometown and really helping the next wave of athletes. And that's kind of what Game Ready morphed into. Obviously, we have extensions and different programs, and, we do so much in the community, but also, 7-on-7 and things like that kind of grew and become bigger programs for us.
Yeah. And you just said it right there. I was going to mention, I feel like the way the path of Game Ready has gone, even from what I've seen, because I've heard about it since my playing days, even back in high school. I've known Leroy's always come and done little camps and stuff back on the island, and I've always known of Game Ready and stuff like that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. When you guys do more than it's not just we'll train you. It's more than just a one-dimensional type of thing. And I think that's what's super cool about it, is the fact that it's there's so many routes that come out of Game Ready and so many connections and so many people that are all have the vision where it's not just this is just an athlete thing. This is just you getting better. It's more than that, right? So I really like what you guys have done with it, and definitely excited to see where it keeps going for sure.
It cut out right there, bro. I lost you for a second. Hopefully it didn't mess up the recording, but
It's all good.
What were you saying though? Sorry, what about Game Ready? You saying back in the day, G-Roy, and you kind of knew about it?
Yeah, and I knew about it, and I was just I really like where it's more than just a training thing. I like where all the avenues that Game Ready has gone has really made it more of like the BC culture, and like that's kind of exactly where I was going with this, where it's like it's the BC athletes all that have one goal, one vision, and like I think even though it's football oriented, obviously you
Yeah.
guys have a really good thing going with it, and I think a lot of people even outside of football are aware of what you're doing, and I think that's the type of thing that more people need to be kind of buying into.
Yeah, man. Honestly, like I've been fortunate with that program, and myself and me and G-Roy kind of sat down and with the blessing of Will, obviously, because him being the head figure of Game Ready, just kind of talking one day, and we're like, listen, man, there's a huge need to really help develop these kids in this province, and really just have a unified like entity that will allow us to develop kids both on and off the field. Like it's not just football, and I mean you've seen it obviously being around the program, but our biggest thing was making sure we had young men that were service driven, focused on helping the community, but also knew that if they tied into something and invested in themselves, man, like they're going to have a huge opportunity to get wherever they want to get to. And that's kind of what the program was built off of, going into 5 years or going into 6 years now. It's one of those situations where, we started the program not knowing if it would take, with the community and if people would support it. And a lot of people have supported it. Some haven't, and that's fine too. But at the end of the day, we just wanted to give another avenue for these kids in our community and in our city and in our province to really understand that if you tie into something, and you're a part of something and you commit to, being the best version of yourself, there's opportunity for you to do whatever you want to do. And that's, that's not just a football lesson, that's a life lesson. But at the end of the day, with Game Ready, obviously being a football program and 7-on-7 being, football skill development, I think there's an opportunity for our players over the years to really see that, like, we always call it the separation season. Like in the off season, it's not really an off season, man. It's opportunity for you to separate yourself from everyone else that, you play with or you're playing against. And really, if you do the right things, man, like you can come back into the fall ready to go. And that's really what it's about. I mean, there's a lot of, trash talking, and it's cool to get great clips and there's a cool, viral videos and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, man, are you working on your craft? Are you getting better at your craft? And are you doing everything else outside of football to put yourself in a position to succeed? And that's one thing with our program is like, we want to really make sure that you're being well-rounded. And, our guys have grade checks. They got mandatory stuff that they got to do to make sure that they're eligible to play for us. Because at the end of the day, if you're not handling the classroom, if you're not doing things in the community or even at home with your family, you're not doing the right things. So, that's kind of what Game Ready is about as far as the elite program and 7-on-7 program. It's great that we travel. It's great that we create these life moments and life experiences, because that is a huge part of what we do. But at the end of the day, like the focus has always been on making sure we develop our players and also just making sure our players go on to the next level. And, over the last couple of years, we've had over 40 players, go on to play U Sport, some guys playing D1, guys going to JC or CEGEP. So there's tons of opportunity to play beyond high school. It's just kind of what our players do with the opportunity when it presents itself. And, I think a good handful or a good majority of our players have taken advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, man. And then like taking a left turn, have you kind of seen it all come full circle? Whereas it's like you played high school ball, you played the junior ball there, you played pro ball all within BC. And then now you're in a program where you have guys doing the same thing. And then like you see wearing on your chest that you're repping the Leaf, you get SFU. So you're recruiting guys, obviously North America wide, but you're recruiting guys within your own province as well. And are you kind of seeing it kind of come full circle for you, where it's like just seeing the guys follow the footsteps, or how's that going for you?
Yeah, man, honestly, never in a million years would I have thought I'd be at SFU. I don't, no disrespect to the institution or the programs in the past. It was just not a place that for me was a fit. But, at the end of the day, Coach Ford and I had a conversation almost 3 years ago, and obviously Coach Ford's moved on now, but at the end of the day, we had a conversation about the opportunity to come to the Hill and to coach. And for me, it was one of those things in my head that was just like, I have an opportunity to do something great at a high level in my hometown. I have an opportunity to really be invested in the community and really try and drive players that are from here to stay here. We have a lot of ballers in BC throughout the province, in every nook and cranny of the province, from Kelowna to Salmon Arm to Chilliwack to Vancouver, wherever. Like, there's so many ballers here. And, I think the common theme for so many years has been, hey, if you're a good player, you're a baller, or you're a dude, you want to go elsewhere to play ball. And, when I got the opportunity at SFU, I think that was part of my whole, prerogative, or my whole vision was like, why not keep the BC ballers here in BC? You know what I'm saying? And why not do something at a high level? Obviously being an NCAA school, obviously having an opportunity to play Division II football against really good competition, man, some really elite competition, and really have the opportunity to say that you played, relatively at the highest level. If you're not a D1 guy, obviously, why not do that in your hometown? And so, that's why I took the job. And honestly, I think for me, I started to see a huge change and a shift in the culture. And again, that's a testament to our staff and to Coach Ford about how they wanted to recruit and their vision and their understanding for the landscape and really what it means to recruit BC kids, man. Like, every single year we're going to go after BC kids, and every single year we're going to try and get the best of the best. And at the end of the day, we won on some guys and we've lost on some guys. But at the end of the day, as a guy from here that grew up here, I really look at it as no matter where these kids play, if they're playing college football, man, that's a huge success and a huge win for the province, period. Obviously I'd love to hoard all the ballers and have them all at SFU. And, hopefully down the road that becomes the destination for all those players. But at the end of the day, right now my prerogative is that, I want to make sure that, SFU is visible. SFU is not irrelevant anymore. And I want to make sure that kids understand this is a destination now. You're going to get a great education. You're going to get opportunity to play NCAA football. You're going to have opportunity to be relatively close to your hometown, if not in your hometown. And then more importantly, man, you're going to develop into a great player, a great person, a great student, and have opportunities to play at the pro level. And that's something that, SFU has to offer. And, that's one thing that's really driven me to keep pushing and keep working hard. And, really honestly think that you're going to see some great things start to come from all that work behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think even anybody in BC can attest to that too. Because like I remember coming up through my recruiting process back in high school, and SFU wasn't obviously at where it is now, not even close. And like now you got, I think over the last 3 years, you've had like 3 guys go to the CFL at least. Yep. And then you have obviously one guy who just went to the Giants, which is huge for the program. You had the head coach who just went to Washington, right?
Yep.
So I mean, a lot of guys going bigger and bigger places, which I think speaks to the volumes that SFU is making. And I think it's making huge waves, which, like you said, I think is important because to have something like SFU, a D2 school, literally here in BC, I think is criminally underrated because, I mean, obviously it hadn't had the success that a lot of other schools have had within the area. Yeah. But with the proper resources and the proper tools and the staff that you guys have now, I really think that it should be a viable option, and it should be probably the option, in my opinion, if you have the opportunity, because you really get to put yourself out there on a scale that a lot of guys don't get to. And I think it's honestly right there with any of the big schools that you go to when you're coming out of BC.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the biggest thing. You hit it like right on the head right there. Is like, at the end of the day, obviously you're based and judged on wins and losses, and that's something that we don't hide from. We haven't been a program that's been a perennial powerhouse or winning 100 games or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, there was a lot of things behind the scenes that needed to be rectified before that process could play itself out. And at the end of the day, I think our staff's mentality and the thing that we've preached since day one is you have to set the culture, you have to build the culture, and you have to nurture the culture. Ultimately, we've done that. I think we've started to really shift the landscape and really prove that guys aren't just transferring out by the boatload. Guys are coming in, they're invested in the program, they believe in the program, they're choosing our program over other programs that are great options as well. And that's the mentality of the players that you want, and those are the players that are going to help you build those winning seasons. And that's the thing. I think now you'll start to see a lot of the things come to fruition because it was about building a staff. It was about building a roster that was competitive. It was about getting a strength and conditioning program in place that was satisfactory to the level of football we play at. It was about having administration support you fully and wholeheartedly, which our administration does. They're invested in us. Obviously being able to sign a deal with Nike and be a Nike school was a huge investment. Obviously building a brand new stadium was a huge investment. So those are things that prove that despite all the shortcomings and all the losing seasons and all the stigmas around the program, this is a new era for the program. This is a new staff. This is a bunch of players that have bought into the process. We've taken our lumps for the last 2 years. A lot of players have been forced into action and have had to grow fast. And on a football field, that's really what helps a player become the best version of himself is experience. And, our players have been battle tested and went to war together for us as a staff. And I think you're going to see different things coming from the Hill this year. And I think honestly, moving forward, regardless of what happens, I think the majority of people will say that this program is now cemented in a position where it's going to be relevant for the moving forward. I think the thing is at the end of the day, you want to make sure everything is set in in a way that's positive and constructive for the program. And it is that now. You know, you have administrative support, you have alumni support, you have players that are invested, you have coaches that are invested. And we're not going to play just anybody. We're going to play top tier talent. You know, we're trying to schedule D1 games every year, and we did that last year. We're going to do it again in 2021 against Idaho. So you get opportunities to really play high level football. But like you said, at the end of the day, the best part of that is you're going to be right here in your hometown. You know what I mean? It's huge.
Yeah, and that's basically the gist of it. Like, that's kind of what I wanted to get from it, and like how it's come full circle, and how the opportunity is right there, and how guys think that they need to leave BC, but really BC is such a good place in terms of, if you look at Canada as a whole, BC is, I'd say, arguably top 2, top 3 in terms of what we can really do here. And I think guys don't give themselves enough credit, and I think we just don't give ourselves enough credit here as what we pump out in terms of talent. So I mean, that's why I kind of wanted to do this, right? Because it's like having guys like you speak on that, and seeing SFU is building this, and you got resources like Game Ready, really shows to the guys here that you really don't have to go that far. It's about the work that you put in. And I think that's kind of the major point.
And honestly, man, like to that point too, that's one thing that's a great point that, you know, is probably highly underrated too, is all the things in order for BC ballers or BC players to be successful are right here in your backyard now. There's tons of great programs that you can train with or, you know, train under. There's tons of, you know, facilities available and resources available to players to work on their specific development. And honestly, man, there's a lot of great, you know, I don't want to say coaches, but more role models and people that have been through the process and have played at the highest of levels that can give you that feedback, give you that coaching, give you the criticism so you can be successful in this game, man. And honestly, that's something that I think I wish players would do a better job of tapping into, because at the end of the day, you know, everyone is available, and always, especially in the era of social media, you can always reach out to a person. You can always connect with a person. And I would love to see more players tie into other players from their communities and abroad, but also making sure that they tie into coaches in their area, tie into, you know, trainers in their area, because there's so many great trainers, not just at Game Ready. I mean, you know, obviously I'm biased in that sense, but at the end of the day, man, there's tons of great programs that are focused on helping develop players. And honestly, I think for us to be an elite province and continue to produce elite players, we just need to be tied in and working together to help continue to further that development, continue to open up facilities, continue to build resources, continue to, you know, really just come together and really unify what BC football is. And that's at every level, from, you know, Pee-wee all the way up to, you know, pro ball. Is if you could tie in and build, you know, camaraderie and build relationships with guys and network with each other, and also push each other in competitive settings, whether that's training or, you know, lifting or, you know, yoga, whatever it may be. Like, I think we just have, as a province as a whole, we have to do a better job of being able to connect with each other and lean on each other to use all the resources that are available, man. And I think that is a reflection of leadership, man. I think there's a huge opportunity for the leaders and the people that are, you know, big members in the community of football out here to really just try and unify everybody, man. Because that's the thing. That's what's going to make us that much more dangerous or better at the next level, is more unified people helping work together to develop all the players from the grassroots level.
I mean, you kind of just answered my follow-up question in that statement. I was going to say, like, as kind of closing words, if there was anything that you wanted to see BC kind of exemplify or improve on for the football culture. But I mean, I guess you pretty much just nailed that one right there.
Yeah.
If anything, it'd be that, yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, like, I guess I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but yeah, I think the biggest thing with that is, again, like, man, I think at the end of the day, man, you know, players, especially young players at the youth levels, like, they're going to follow whatever's shiny and new, whatever sounds good, whatever looks cool on Instagram, whatever looks cool on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, as leaders in the football community, I think we all should put our collective brains together. You know, obviously multiple minds is better than one, you know, just to come together and find solutions and really pool the resources to help really unify what football in this province could be. You know, potential is a very scary word. And I think this province has potential to be the premier province for football, you know, if we want to be. But at the end of the day, that reflects leadership, that reflects, you know, the unity, that reflects pooling resources, that reflects all these players understanding that there's different ways of getting to be the best version of yourself. And if you're willing to do that, then, you know, then there's a huge opportunity for growth and development and really taking football to another level. But if you don't, then, you know, then there's all these little smaller, you know, sects of people that aren't necessarily going to help, you know, better the end result, which is, you know, great football players, great people, great community leaders that come back and give back to the BC football community.
Perfect, man. Well, I mean, you killed it. You basically hit all the numbers I wanted to hit there. I mean, that pretty much wraps it up.